Hiya! You are now watching VideoGaming Father's video review of top-down fantasy tower defense game called Dungeon Warfare. Does it have an epic story once it has the word dungeon in its name? What are you going to play for? Are there many interesting and variable enemies trying to get the treasure that you defend? Will you be in possession of many interesting and original weapons that spice up the life of daring adventurers? Does it have reasonable difficulty and responsive controls? Are there many upgrades and other RPG elements enhancing the traditional tower defense gameplay? Just stay with me to get the full picture of Dungeon Warfare. Let's start with the story as usual. So once upon a time there was... Wait, stop. There is actually nothing to tell. What? The game with the word dungeon in its name, and there is no story to tell, you probably think right now. Sadly it is so. The only information you get is that you are dungeon lord and your task is to defend your dungeon against greedy adventurers. It's a shame that the developers did not properly unfold the idea, and it could lead to a funny story full of dark humor. But never mind, there are more important elements that have a bigger impact on the quality of tower defense games, so let's better take a look at them. On the first side, Dungeon Warfare plays like a classic tower defense game. On one end of the screen you've got a portal that you need to defend at all costs, and on the other hand is an entry point where soon tons of enemies start trying to find a way to get to your precious portal before they end up as minced meat under the heavy fire of your defense structures. On the top of the screen you have the life counter that decreases with each enemy that has survived the way of death and reached your portal. On the left part of the screen there is a counter of enemy waves with the information how many enemies and what type are in that wave. There can be either one way leading from entrance point to the structure that you defend, or quite often more ways, and in such cases you need to pay special attention to the redistribution of your defense structures to have properly covered all such ways. You are getting money for eliminating enemies that you can use for building new defense structures or upgrading existing ones. So far it really seems like a classic recipe for a successful but not very original tower defense game. Are there any original features that distinguish Dungeon Warfare from many other tower defense games? Luckily, the authors of the game use their imagination to make this game innovative enough. The first thing is that you are getting experience points for every eliminated enemy. For weaker enemies you are getting less points, for stronger enemies more points. These points are summarized at the end of the level, and once you have enough of them, your experience level is increased. For each level up you can choose from 3 bonuses: new trap slot, additional gems, or additional gold at the start of level. I consider gems the worthiest bonus as you can upgrade your defense structures for them, which is crucial for further levels. This is not so unusual yet, but what you do not usually see in tower defense games is a combo meter. The more enemies you hit before the combo meter drops to 0, the better combo, which means the better financial and experience bonus for you. Also, the signs like juicy kill streak or excellent kill streak are quite satisfying. Another good idea is the system of runes. You are gradually getting the runes that you can use before each level. They are not improving your statistics, but on the contrary they provide some advantage to the enemy. Why would I use such runes that do nothing but handicap me, you are probably thinking right now. Well, simply because they provide you with a multiplier for experience points gained for the level. So far I have found 2 rules. One causes that you have just 1 life, so it's enough if one enemy reaches your portal and the game is over. Another one causes the enemies to regenerate 5% of their health each second. The more runes you use, the higher the multiplier for your experience points. You are virtually adjusting the difficulty of each level by using the runes, which is a very good idea. And last but not least, there are some interactive objects in almost each level that you can use against your enemies as an emergency weapon. In some levels there are giant boulders, and once you release them, they make everything staying in that bay look like mashed potatoes. In other levels, there are moving minecarts, and some of them carry the explosives. If you manage to push the enemy to the way of such minecart, you can imagine how it ends up by yourself. And I'm sure that there are even more good ideas in the game that I have not seen yet. Good job! Let's take a close look at the enemies and your defense structures now. As for the enemies, they are recruited from various hero-like units. There are weak and slow peasants, weak but quick adventurers, slow but heavy knights, very quick thieves, and then the units with special abilities like warriors that are able to block the first damage they take, priests that are able to periodically heal nearby units, or dwarves that attack the barricades on site. There are supposed to be many more units, so the variability is guaranteed. I just miss the stronger personality of enemy units, which is probably because of the audiovisual side of the game. They are seen from the top-down perspective, the game has pixel art graphics, and there are no funny one-liners for each unit. The enemies are simply not as good as in Kingdom Rush, for example. As for the defense structures, there are dart traps that fire darts at high rate, spike traps, which are arrays of traps that impale everything above, push traps that pushes enemies away and are effective especially in combination with field of spike traps, and barricades which are impassable barriers that can be attacked and destroyed only by certain units. The path of enemy units to your portal can be adjusted by them, and it is of course the best to make it as long as possible and also as painful as possible. Your defense structures are defined by the damage they cause and also by the time to recharge, cooldown, which can be reduced by upgrading. There are the permanent upgrades that are bought for games and temporary upgrades that can be done in the game. That would be great if only the upgrades were not limited mainly to reducing cooldowns. In already mentioned Kingdom Rush, the defense structures change their look by upgrading and also the type of projectiles, and also get some additional features like poison, for example. Here you have many upgrades, but their variability is rather low. What I appreciate is the variability of ladders. In some of them there is just one path to your portal, while in the other ones there are several places where the enemies come from, so you need to build your defense structures wisely to have everything covered properly. There are also interactive parts in almost each map that I mentioned before, like boulders, minecarts, etc., that can be used against your enemies. The good idea is that you can choose the next stage that you will play on the world map, so it is not just the linear set of missions that are played one after another, like in many other tower defense games. Let's take a quick look at the audiovisual side. Dungeon Warfare is seen from top-down view and has pixel art graphics. Along with the zoom-in, zoom-out feature, you have good control over the whole scene thanks to this, but as I mentioned before, the units lacks the details which makes them less attractive and also less personal than in Kingdom Rush, for example. The heroic soundtrack perfectly fits the game and is one of the pros. Sounds of traps and also painful sounds of your enemies when being hit are quite authentic. I was only missing some funny one-liners like in the Kingdom Rush that could make a better game atmosphere. Like this, the sounds are rather average. So let's sum it up. Is Dungeon Warfare worth spending your money and time, or should you rather start looking somewhere else? There are obviously many pros like innovative ideas, good level design, challenging difficulty, XP upgrade system, combo meter, system of runes, and heroic soundtrack. There are also some cons like the absence of story, enemies without their own personality, generic upgrades of defense structures, and top-down view in combination with pixel art graphics. Is Dungeon Warfare suitable for family playing? Thanks to short levels, adjustable difficulty, and overall funny gameplay, the answer is yes. Despite some flaw, Dungeon Warfare has the most important essence of good games. It can be addictive. Once it drags you in, it can only speed you out after a couple of hours later. I have enjoyed the time spent with this nice tower defense game, and thus I'm giving it thumbs up, and VideoGaming Father's index 8 out of 10. Recommended. Thank you for watching my Dungeon Warfare video review. Please don't forget to give it a thumb up if you like it, and if you do not want to miss my further video reviews, please subscribe to my VideoGaming Father's channel. Bye bye!